on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his...
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Listener discretion is advised. The show contains graphic language and depictions of violence. It may not be suitable for all audiences.
We say fuck a lot. Hey guys, welcome back to Mountain Murders.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Well, Dylan, we are fastly approaching the holiday season.
Oh my God, I can see Sandy's butthole.
Of course, Hanukkah has Hanukkah has already started.
That's how close I'm getting.
I don't know. Okay.
I can hear was it a menorah? Is that a...
That's a candles, honey.
Oh, okay. What's the thing that spins?
A dreidel?
Isn't there like a top or something going on there?
Oh my gosh.
I love Jewish people. I wish we had... They got it figured out because they have multiple days of celebration.
Yeah. And they have gefilte fish.
I don't know what that is.
I'm going to make you some.
Oh, is that like some kind of canned fish?
Yes.
No.
My son is obsessed with gefilte fish.
Does he actually eat it?
No, but when he sees it in a jar, he's just like, oh, I don't know. He just thinks it's like the coolest thing.
No, well, I'll try it. I eat salmon out of a can and salmon patties.
Salmon?
Salmon.
You mean salmon?
It's not salmon.
It is. The L is silent.
No one says salmon.
Everybody says salmon.
Salmon.
No one says salmon.
I'm saying fucking salmon.
Oh, God, it drives me crazy. I can't stand when you do that. And then you were trying to correct my grammar this morning because I was like, hey, can you hand me a plate? And you were like, may I hand you a plate? I don't know.
That wasn't. Look. You were saying, can you? And I was saying, may I? Yes, you may. Or you're like, can I get a plate?
And you're going to correct me, and you say salmon.
That's not correcting grammar. That is politeness. That's
salmon.
Your etiquette. That is your manners, bruh.
I don't have any.
I
was raised in a barn by wild goats.
That explains everything.
That's why I'm always eating your shirts.
May I have a plate? May I please have a plate? See, this is how she was talking back to me, people. Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. You could at least been raised by sensible, business-oriented goats, and you already saved a lot of money.
No, I was raised by like an evil devil goat.
Mm-hmm.
Like Black Billy from The Witch.
Oh.
Yeah.
What's his name? Black Billy?
Yeah, the little goat that runs around terrorizing the farm.
Did someone in the movie name him?
Yeah.
Or is he in the credits?
Yeah, he's a little Billy goat. He's like, okay, I'll stop with
You can't do that anymore.
Stop with my goat sounds.
You have to stop it. Do one more. I know you're going to.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm done. I got it all out.
You sure?
Yeah. I got it all out. I'm good. We can podcast now.
Don't be tapping your little hooves on the floor over there.
Well, my horns are starting to come in. I have a bit of a headache. You know the hooves only come in at midnight.
Okay, so here we are. God damn it. I knew it. I knew you were going to do that.
I'm sorry. I love to fuck with you. It's great.
Oh, my God. So this episode of Mountain Murders is being sponsored by an incredible patron that we just got, our newest patron, Elise.
She has joined the menagerie.
Yes, thank you. And we hope you enjoy the ad-free and all the extra content over there on Patreon.
Elise, you rock.
Oh, you're the best.
Yeah. If you want to sign up, patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast. Just a couple of bucks a month. You can support the show, and you can support Dylan's beer habit. And
You should say that. I don't want people. I don't buy beer with Patreon supported money.
It's true. I don't let you have any of it.
Oh my God! Now I want a beer
because I know you would buy beer.
No, actually, it all goes back into keeping the podcast alive.
That's true. It does.
So that's how that goes.
Well, that's because I'm responsible when I pay the bills, so I have to take care of that. I can't just let you be willy-nilly with money.
I'm going to hold you. We were talking earlier, you said I could have beer this evening.
Yeah, I will ration it. You can have, like, one.
I'm getting a 40 of OE then.
A 40?
Yep, of Old English.
Some Schlitz?
No, they don't have 40s of slits around here.
They don't?
No.
I don't know.
You can get some Colt 45. You can get OE. You can get the High Life, which is the champagne of beers.
Well, I know about the High Life.
Yeah, that's a good one because you can get that for around $2, people.
Didn't Steve Winwood write a song about back in the High Life again? Do you think that just meant he, got him a 6-pack of Miller High Life?
I don't know. But the only time I've ever drank Miller High Life is in a 40.
Did you get a 40 and fight someone?
Well, see, here's the thing.
I feel like if I would drink a 40, I would want to, get in a fight or something.
Well, it depends on how fast you drink it.
Drunk.
If you drink that 40 before it gets warm, then it's on now.
I just make me have to go pee.
Oh, you're going to piss.
Yeah,
you're going to be pissy.
For me.
But you know what? You're also going to have a nice buzz for $2. All right.
I know what Santa's bringing Dylan.
Well, I'm going to go out since I can have one beer, and I'm going to find the biggest beer that I can find.
A 40?
That's
He's going to bring home a keg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they have some little kegs of Heineken or some shit at the store.
Like a little pony keg?
Yeah, and I can just set it up above me and just count on gravity to bring it into my body. Okay.
We'll be funneling some beer later?
No, you ain't.
Well, this case is brand new to me, Dylan. I knew very little, if nothing, about these killings.
I'm telling you what, I've already said it to you. I don't understand why this isn't huge and why this isn't like a big deal in true crime, because I can't believe it.
Well, hopefully this will be a story that you'll enjoy. And I must say, while researching these cases, I became increasingly angry and frustrated due to the racism that takes place in the story.
You're going to make me mad.
So I'm also going to add at the beginning of this, Black Lives Matter. Because that's a message we stick to and stand behind, right, Dylan?
Yeah, of course. Black Lives Matter.
All right. Are you ready to get started with our story?
Yeah, let's do it.
When we think of Atlanta, Georgia today, what thoughts come to mind?
Is it home of Coca-Cola?
Yes.
Turner Broadcast Network?
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling was big there.
Wrestling?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I think of a bustling metropolitan city, steeped in rich history and a lot of fun.
Oh.
Hotlanta.
Yeah, it's an interesting city.
You got the Claremont Lounge?
It's definitely kind of a sprawling area, kind of like L.A. I think it reminds me of like the East Coast's version of L.A. because it's so big. I mean, it's spread out so quickly, you know what I mean? They even have like multiple kind of downtowns, you know? You got the regular downtown, and then was that the north side or whatever? A lot of business shit over there.
Well, known as Gate City, Atlanta played an important role in the Civil War. The city is situated in the foothills of Appalachia and is one of the major cities in the United States, boasting nearly 6 million people. Call it home.
That's a lot of people.
And it's coming in the 9th largest metropolitan area in the United States. Atlanta today has a skyscraper skyline, professional sports teams. You've got the Braves, the Falcons. As you mentioned, Dylan, we've got CNN News Network.
The Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah. Coca-Cola World. And it hosted the 1996 Olympic Games. But the Atlanta we're discussing today is a very different moment in history.
Oh, okay. It's also the home of Adult Swim.
Yeah, well, we said CNN and Turner Broadcasting.
I don't give a shit. I was adding that.
Okay. Well, to understand our story, we need to take a look at a few things. Atlanta was established originally as a terminus for a major state-sponsored railroad. Soon it grew as a convergence point for multiple railroads, spurring rapid economic growth. The Western and Atlantic Railroad sealed the city's reputation as a transportation hub. Atlanta was unique from other southern towns like Charleston or Savannah because Atlanta didn't have a large slave population.
Really?
Like in the antebellum days. In the 1850s, Mary Combs and Ransom Montgomery became the first African Americans to own property in Atlanta. During the Civil War, General Sherman's famous March to the Sea, left a smoldering town in ashy ruins. But Southerners are known for their drive and hard work ethic, and like a phoenix, Atlanta quickly rose from the ashes to become the unofficial capital of the New South.
So it was just like a scorched earth campaign on that march, right? Burn everything in sight, loot, pillage, rape. I mean, some people don't, they just view that whole situation in a certain way. But I mean, marauding troops of any brand or it's not good. When people just come through, they have all the firepower, the weapons, you can't protect yourself. And just, I don't know, it's almost the dirty side of human nature when people are in this powerful position.
Yep.
With the raping and the pillaging and taking what you want and just indiscriminately killing people. That's pretty horrible.
In the mid to late 1800s, during the Reconstruction period, Atlanta offered good-paying manufacturing jobs, and the population exploded. In the years between 1860 and 1865, Atlanta's population doubled.
Wow, that's very fast growth.
Post-war migration to the city included many Black Americans who were already free men or former slaves, hoping to make a new life for themselves and family. Atlanta's Black community was thriving. Unlike many areas, there was a tight-knit Black community with budding entrepreneurs becoming a center for higher education, political power, and Black culture. It has often been called the Black Mecca. In 1865, Atlanta City Council vowed equal protection for whites and blacks, and they created a school for Black children, the first in the city. They also helped create Clark College, which is now Clark Atlanta University, which was a specifically Black college. And you've also got Spelman. I mean, there's a lot of Black institutes of higher education in Atlanta, in that area. However, after the Reconstruction, which ended in 1877, the Black community was at the mercy of predominantly white state and local leadership. The whites used many tactics to disenfranchise Black voters. Not even college-educated Black men could vote. And during the Jim Crow South, many Black folks were poor, but a rise of Black urban middle class was apparent in Atlanta.
See, right directly after the Civil War, and, the Emancipation Proclamation, all that. If we'd have left I think a lot of people aren't aware of how many rights and stuff the Black people had directly there after the war. And if we'd have just been like, okay, that was bad, it's going to take a while for everyone's mindset to change, but we definitely don't want to do that again. Let's just move forward as a nation and left people alone and had some kind of restorative programs of some sort, to give people, to build up that kind of wealth. They can pass generational wealth that you can leave to your children, be it land, a home, a business. We would be so much further ahead in this nation as far as race relations, things of that nature. But then, all those rights and things were slowly eroded away by the Jim Crow laws of the South. And it's very sad. I mean, I just don't understand at what point humans don't just, stop doing messed up shit to each other and move forward together. Oh, God, it pisses me off.
Yeah, I know. Well, competition for jobs and housing in a fast-growing city gave rise to fears and tensions. In 1906, the Atlanta Race Riot left 40 Black folks dead, maybe more. An angry mob of whites violently terrorized the Black community for 2 days, from September 22nd to September 24th. And according to the Atlanta History Center, some Black Americans were hanged from lampposts, others were shot, beaten, or stabbed to death. They were pulled from streetcars and attacked on the streets. White mobs invaded Black neighborhoods, destroyed homes, and burned businesses. And for what?
And for what?
I mean, Jesus.
It's just like in Tulsa. The reason that thriving business community, Black business community, came about is because the Black people weren't allowed to spend their money in the white districts. You can't come here. We don't serve your kind. So they start pulling their money into one area, and it becomes really, really successful. And then people are jealous because you have these successful. I'm like, what are they supposed to do? You won't let them spend or buy at this store. Then they create their own, a business district, and it thrives because all that money's pushed into one spot because you won't allow them to shop in other places. And then people get jealous, and then they're looking for some reason some bullshit reason to pop off, which is what happened. And then people were killed and murdered and things blown up. I just don't get it.
The immediate catalyst was newspaper reports of 4 white women allegedly raped in separate incidents. And of course, they were alleging that it was by African American men. So 2 African Americans were later indicted by a grand jury for raping Ethel Lawrence and her aunt. An underlying cause was the growing racial tension, again, in this rapidly changing city and economy, because there was a competition for jobs, housing, and political power. The violence did not end until Governor Joseph M. Terrell called in the Georgia National Guard, and African Americans accused the Atlanta Police Department and some guardsmen of participating in the violence against them. Local histories by whites ignored the riot for decades. It was not until 2006 that the event was publicly marked on its 100th anniversary.
Damn, that's crazy.
The next year, the Atlanta riot was made part of the state's curriculum for public schools. Finally. 100 years. Just crazy to me.
So they wouldn't even talk about it in school?
No.
Their own immediate history in the area? It
No.
wasn't taught in the schools?
Yeah. Isn't that mind-blowing?
Yeah.
After the riots, Atlanta wanted to project itself as being racially tolerant, touting Morris Brown, Atlanta University, and Atlanta Baptist as some of the best black schools in the nation. Black-owned businesses, as I mentioned, were popping up. However, the majority of the city's minority residents, rather than having their own businesses, worked long hours in menial jobs, doing manual labor and living in some less desirable areas known as Reynoldstown and Pittsburgh. Segregation was law at the time. Blacks couldn't walk through white parks. They could not eat in white restaurants. They could not drink in white bars. They could not drink from white water fountains. And they could not be buried in white cemeteries. Accordingly, the city's white residents actively took steps to keep their white-only neighborhoods white. Members of white neighborhoods held meetings to brainstorm how they could prevent black families from moving in.
What the hell, people?
The dark moment in Atlanta history sets the stage for our true crime tale. And I bring all this up because it's all going to kind of paint a picture of the time period we're discussing. Since segregation and racism were prevalent at this time, it's hard to pinpoint the exact moment the murders started. And as you can guess, the white media was deliberately not reporting crimes against African Americans. The first reported victim that's going to be associated with our Atlanta Ripper, or AKA the Black Butcher, was that of 23-year-old cook Maggie Brooks. Her body was found at the intersection of the Atlanta and West Point Railroad track and Hill Street. Maggie's skull had been fractured. There was a very small blurb written in the Atlanta Constitution about the discovery of her body, and there is an official death certificate. But otherwise, there's really nothing else to give us a glimpse of Maggie's life. It is possible that the killer committed prior murders that may have gone unreported, or there could have been a lag in crimes. As we know, some serial killers have those sleeper periods that might be several months or years, like depending.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It could be because they can't get away, from people in their regular life to do what they do, or because of work, or just it's very interesting the different reasons there's these cooling off periods.
So 23-year-old cook Maggie Brooks, she is the first associated with our killer. In 1909, bodies of black women had been found in the 4th Ward. The victims often died from gunshots or blunt force trauma to the head. Now, if these were the same perpetrator involved in the later killings, he definitely grew more emboldened, and the crimes would grow more grisly over time. In early 1911, 35-year-old housewife Rosa Treese was found near her house murdered. She'd been bludgeoned, the left side of her skull crushed, and her jaw stabbed and her throat slashed so savagely that her head was nearly decapitated. After being killed, the perpetrator drug her body some 75 yards from her house on Gardner Street in the Pittsburgh neighborhood and abandoned it there. And it was soon discovered. 2 hours after they found her body, Rose's husband was arrested for her murder, but released the next day because they had no evidence. The Atlanta Constitution reported her murder, including some of the gruesome details of the killing.
Wow, that's pretty amazing that the killer's comfortable enough to drag her that far in, her neighborhood. That's pretty interesting.
Not even a month later, in February of 1911, a third victim was discovered in a similar fashion. The body of a Jane Doe, an unidentified black female, was stumbled upon in a wooded area near the West Point Belt car line, just outside the city limits. She was thought to be in her mid-20s. The poor woman suffered a horrible death as her head had been crushed. Beer bottles were scattered around the body. It was suspected she had been killed either Friday, February the 17th, or Saturday, February the 18th. Now, I wonder if the beer bottles belonged to the killer, who was drunk at the time of the attack, or if perhaps, since she's an unidentified female, could she have been a sex worker, engaging, maybe she was drinking with the killer, and then was murdered?
Well, that's
I don't
interesting.
know. Those were just some of my thoughts.
Yeah.
It's a little different from some of the other murders. There was a brief lull in the killings until May. The killer would strike again. On Sunday morning, May 28th of 1911, the body of a cook, Mary Belle Walker, was found 25 yards from her home on Garibaldi Street. Belle was working in a private home on Cooper Street and failed to return from work the night before. Now, her sister, knowing Belle would never stay out all night, grew concerned. And upon searching for her sister, she found Belle's body. So Belle's throat was cut in a jagged fashion, indicating that the killer didn't use a sharp tool, but perhaps some kind of makeshift weapon.
Oh my God, that sounds brutal.
The Atlanta Constitution reported the crime in their May 29th edition on page 7, noting that, and I'm saying this because it's printed in the paper, a Negro woman had been killed and there were no clues. So the fact that her throat seemed to be slashed in a jagged way makes me think that maybe the killer lacked self-control and just couldn't help himself.
Yeah, it sounds like it sounds unplanned, and they just took whatever was at hand, maybe a broken bottle or something of that nature. So, yeah, I think that could possibly be possible.
Well, I noted that he seemed more ill-prepared for this murder. And also, Dylan, think of how fucking horrible it would be someone cutting your throat with a dull instrument, the kind that would leave a jagged, rough appearance. Ouch.
That sounds so brutal and horrible. It's not clean in the least bit. Not that that's okay, but it just sounds torturous. I mean, it really does.
Very cruel. By Thursday, June 15th, 1911, Addie Watts was found in hedges at Krog and DeKalb Streets near the Southern Railway. Authorities believed she had been first hit in the head with maybe a brick or a coupling pin from a train. The killer then penetrated her skull with a coupling pin and sliced her throat. Post-mortem, the perpetrator dragged her into the bushes.
My God. I mean, beating someone to death with an object or your hands or anything like that, I've always thought was very, very, very brutal. You know what I mean?
No, it absolutely is.
Blunt force trauma to the head and stuff, and you never know how many shots it took before how many the victim feels or recognizes. It just always seemed very brutal to me.
Once Addie Watts was discovered, local newspapers began to realize that there may be a single killer preying randomly on the city's young black women, as opposed to multiple perpetrators murdering these women. Of course, the term serial killer wouldn't be known for several decades.
No, but I guess they could. Well, I guess at least they're finally acknowledging that something might be going on. That the crimes seem very similar. And I don't know about the demographics, if it's in the exact same area or whatever. But yeah, it sounds like someone's definitely murdering women over and over.
On June 16th of 1911, the Atlanta Journal ran a headline questioning whether a black butcher was at work in Atlanta. It was this brief article that first linked the Atlanta murders to those that occurred in London during the fall of 1888, when 5 prostitutes were brutally stabbed to death and mutilated by the infamous Jack the Ripper.
Well, I mean, yeah, how could you not make that connection? I mean, could you imagine having been when, these crimes first happened and remember reading them in the paper and how scary it would sound and seem?
According to the article, the police were advancing the theory that Atlanta has an insane criminal, something on the order of the famed Jack the Ripper. The competing Atlanta Constitution still supported the idea that the murders were committed by multiple killers and concluded that whiskey and cocaine were the probable causes.
Okay.
Yeah. So by 1911, Jack the Ripper was a household name. The Journal newspapers were reporting similarities among the two murderers. For 5 Saturdays in a row, Atlanta had seen the murder of young black or biracial women. So every Saturday for 5 weeks.
My God.
Yeah.
I guess at this point, everyone's like, what the hell's going on?
Then Saturday, June 24th of 1911, Lizzie Watkins became the next victim. She was found around 11 a.m. the following day in some shrubbery located at White and Lawson Streets. And like Addie Watts, Lizzie's throat had been carved. And again, the killer took the time to drag the body into bushes in an attempt to semi-hide the body.
Well, that's buying them just a little bit of time, enough time to get out of the immediate area, I guess. It's not like they're trying to, no shallow grave. They're not really attempting to hide them except for just the moment.
After the Lizzie Watkins murder, the press finally moved to this story to the front page of the Atlanta Journal. Through these articles, the public at large finally learned for the first time that in each of these murder cases, it appeared the victims had been strangled to the point of, being unconscious. Then they were assaulted and killed. And due to the graphic nature, the paper reported that some of the victims had been mutilated in the same areas of their bodies. Atlanta's Ripper victims were not raped, but their injuries appeared sexual in nature. Investigators also believe the local killer had some type of anatomic knowledge, much like Jack the Ripper.
I wonder what makes them think that.
I'm not sure.
Because, it doesn't sound precise. There doesn't seem to be precision involved. And it sounds kind of just, kind of caveman-like.
Well, everything that I read was saying how that because of the graphic nature, the newspapers were very delicate in their reporting. And the fact that they were saying that they had been mutilated in some of the same areas of the body. And they did go as far as to say, they hadn't been raped. But they wouldn't really elaborate. So we're kind of left not knowing if perhaps they were mutilated like Jack the Ripper's victims.
Or on some specific part of their body. I was going to say that it sounds like their heads being, bashed in, for lack of a better word. It seems to be, that's definitely mutilation. Sticking, objects into their brain. That's disgusting and horrible.
And I meant to say anatomical knowledge. I said anatomic. I meant anatomical.
Oh my God, it's got radiation coming out of it.
Yeah, I know. Then the Atlanta Constitution finally started agreeing to this theory, admitting that the Jack the Ripper theories did have some substance. The newspaper also stated that the murders were being exploited by black preachers to rile up their congregations.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, there's so much about this story that makes me angry. This blatant racism and discrimination is just so,
It's just so lowbrow. Really, you have to be, I don't know. I just don't think you can be an enlightened person in any way and think other humans are beneath you or whatever, or that you're inherently better. You treat me like that, but I know it's not because you're racist.
It's out of love.
It's because you're a fattest.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You have designs on, against people like me of the larger persuasion.
I'm chunky. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, that's just cover.
See, now you're going to have people emailing me hate mail. Thanks, Dylan.
No.
Full of shit.
She loves my fat, guys.
Stupid.
Don't email her anything.
Yeah,
hateful.
well, I will get more reviews that are like, that woman. Since they always attack me and they never say anything about you.
That female host.
Yeah, exactly.
On that talk show.
Yeah. Finally, there seemed to be a break in this otherwise cold case. It was Saturday, July 1st of 1911 when 40-year-old Lena Sharp told her 20-year-old daughter Emma Lou that she was heading out to the market to pick up a few things. And when Lena didn't come back to the Sharp home on Hanover Street, her daughter Emma Lou started walking to the market looking for her mom. Addie Watts was the Sharps' neighbor and had been killed 2 weeks before. So naturally, Emma Lou was concerned that her mom was running late and she hadn't come home from the store because it was supposedly just a short distance.
Well, yeah, if your neighbor's been murdered already, of course it's fresh on your mind, and I'm sure you'd be worried.
Emma Lou, having had no luck finding her mom, was walking back home when a tall black man in a wide-brimmed black hat approached her and asked, "How do you feel this evening?" Well, something didn't feel right, so she kind of moved past him, and as she walked past him, he told her, "Don't worry, I never hurt girls like you." The man then swiped at Emma Lou with a knife, causing a gash on her back.
Well, you just lied, bruh.
He then ran off laughing. She was screaming and bleeding, and neighbors nearby came out to see what the commotion was and found her. Emma Lou fortunately survived the attack, but her mother did not. Lena Sharp's body was found shortly after her daughter's attack. She was lying in a pool of blood and her throat lacerated.
So she came across the man who had just murdered her mother, basically.
Yeah, that's
Seems
the
like.
theory. Yeah.
My God.
An eyewitness to the attacks didn't slow the killer. Detectives working on Emma Lou's case almost immediately concluded that the same man who had stabbed Emma Lou had killed her mother and their neighbor Addie Watts and the other women. So he's obviously working the same neighborhoods in the same areas.
Well, yeah, it sounds like it. And why wouldn't he? He's not. There's no cop. Big police presence. There's not cops on every corner. They're not turning the place upside down. It doesn't sound like they're actively, really going balls out to find this killer.
After the Sharp murder, the Atlanta Constitution reported that while the ordinary Negro murder attracts little attention, the police department was expecting a repetition of the long series of crimes which have baffled every effort of the detectives.
Well, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, if you're thinking about it like that, then, hell, you're never going to solve it because you're not putting any effort. And this is racial, and it's also a matter of affluence, If this happened in a poor part of town, it would be semi-ignored. But if it happened in the whatever their Park Avenue type area is, where the rich people lived, multiple women with their brains bashed out and murdered, it would, it'd be a huge story, and everybody be losing their mind.
Oh, keep that line of thought, Dylan. We're gonna get to that here in a minute.
Damn it.
A $25 reward was offered by a mortician named L.L. Lee for the capture of the man who killed Lena Sharp. Mr. Lee also requested that other black business owners open their wallets to increase this reward fund. He thought that a financial reward might encourage residents to come forward with more information. And many black residents were still weary of white police at this point. So even if somebody did know something, they were hesitant to trust the white criminal justice system. And rightfully so.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there's very few stories of this system having helped people they know. So, a lot more stories of it, of abusing them or ignoring them in some way. So why would you trust it?
A coroner named Paul Donahue stated that his belief was the killings were the work of the same man, one killer, like a single killer. And the city was on edge with an approaching weekend. The Atlanta Journal asked, "Will Jack the Ripper claim 8th victim this Saturday?" An unnamed policeman speculated that the killer would take another victim sometime before midnight Saturday. And while Atlanteans, is that what they are? Atlanteans?
I think Atlantean sounds pretty good.
Whatever the y'all people call yourselves, held their breath, the weekend rolled around, and it was Saturday, July 8th, 1911, that 22-year-old Mary Yeldel, a private cook, left the home of her employers on 4th Street. The woman passed by an alley where she heard a whistle. So she stops and sees a large black man, tall, well-built, walking towards her. She screams, and she runs back to her boss's house, and her employer, a man named Mr. Seltzer, grabbed his revolver and ran out to the alley. The tall black man was still there. So when Mr. Seltzer ordered him to raise his hands or be shot, the man took off running down the alley, the opposite direction, and away from the loaded weapon. The police were called to the scene, but nothing came of it. There was no evidence, no clues left behind.
Oh, man.
Close call, right? Mary Yeldel possibly was confronted with the Atlanta Ripper. Now, thankfully, she had been lucky enough to not only survive, but survive without injuries. The Yeldell incident appeared to have broken the Saturday night streak for a time. But it was not the last time the Ripper would strike, not by a long shot. But at least Mary's description, along with that of Emma Lou's, did give police a better picture of what this guy looked like, because their descriptions were very similar.
Well, and not only the police, but the public at large. If this makes it to the paper and everyone, you kind of, know who to be wary of in a way.
On Sunday, July 9th, Black churches and community leaders held a meeting. They asked those in attendance to use, his or her.
Oh my God, his or her.
His or her.
Jesus.
I will get that out. Resources to help solve these killings and bring justice to the victims. While requesting that Black residents fully cooperate with the police, the leaders also began demanding that the Atlanta police force needed to hire Black officers to assist in these cases.
Well, it comes down to community policing. You're not going to have that connection to the community. You're not have individual connections with people you see on a daily basis walking your beat. And you're just not, people aren't going to tell you the information.
You're right, Dylan. Due to segregation, Black leaders and community members felt that Black detectives would receive more cooperation from Black community members. Because for many African Americans, the white police, coming into their neighborhoods just meant nothing good was happening.
You know what's insane? This is still happening to this day.
Yeah.
Cops from outside of an area, big areas like LA and such, are the ones that come in and are doing the job. And I don't understand. I don't get if there's no applicants or qualified people in those areas, or if this is done on purpose. And then another point of that is not only are those people not from the community and don't have those, intimate connections with people, they also take their money and their paycheck back to another town over or the suburbs and spend it. And you're actually, using your tax money and your tax base to send money to another area and fund it. It's kind of messed up.
And there were trust issues, as I mentioned. So employing Black officers was an effort to build a bridge between the Black neighborhoods and the Atlanta Police Department. Then another strange thing happened on Tuesday morning, July 11th, 1911. A worker discovered some loose dirt on his normal route to work. And so curious, he kind of followed the dirt to a blood trail in the middle of the road at Atlanta Avenue and Martin Street.
Damn.
And what he found was a deceased woman named Sadie Holly lying in a ditch nearby. She worked at a local laundry. Sadie's skull had been smashed with a rock and her throat slashed from ear to ear so badly that she was nearly decapitated. Her body had been dragged about 15 feet into the ditch. Her shoes had been cut from her feet, and a comb from her hair was found lying next to a bloody rock that police assumed was the murder weapon. There was soft dirt found by her body.
So it's like this guy, as soon as he makes contact, attacks these women and kills them. He doesn't even try to lure them away into a quiet area, and then because he's always moving the body, to be hidden for just a moment. That's very wild.
Well, and now he's taking her shoes. So as we see, he's escalating and progressing. That now he's taking souvenirs.
Yeah, maybe it's a trophy.
In less than a half hour after her body was found, the crime scene was a spectacle. Nearly 100 rubberneckers had gathered to catch this glimpse of a body. And by the time the coroner arrived, the crowd had added about 400 more onlookers. So they had a crowd of about 500 people surrounding this body.
Oh my gosh.
People were hysterical, frightened, demanding that police go find this killer. But investigators were limited. They still had nothing to go on. Sadie Holly was the first murder victim to make the front page of the Atlanta Constitution, which stated, "Reign of crime grips Atlanta," and "Negro woman slain, no arrests are made." The Constitution, which had been slow to accept that Atlanta had a serial killer on its hands, now was joining, finally, the Atlanta Journal in reporting about these murders.
Well,
saying, hey, we think it's all the same person.
Well, not only do the police have the roadblocks of just the attitudes and all the racial issues of the day, they also don't have really the tools or techniques to kind of ferret out a criminal like this, a murderer.
Well, and if you think about 500 people gathering around the body, if there happened to be any kind of evidence, not that they really were, I guess, relying on forensics back then, but if there was any evidence, it's probably trampled, crushed.
Well,
Somebody could have thrown it away. I mean, these are contaminated crime scenes.
Someone could pick it up if it's some obvious. I'm sure they had observational skills and, would look around scenes and, make some, some deductions from that, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, that scene's been totally destroyed because of all these people crowded around. And if there was something like a bloody rock or something or a pipe, someone could pick it up as some kind of gruesome, souvenir of sort.
Like a trinket from the crime scene.
Yeah, I mean, because this is becoming sensationalized to it anyway, even though it's been ignored.
And people have always had morbid fascinations with true crime.
That's true. We've talked about that in many different ways and forms. That's always been around. People looky-loos, the rubberneckers, wanting to be a part of something, or especially once something starts blowing up like this is.
These cold cases picked up a little steam when police arrested 27-year-old laborer Henry Huff on July 11th, less than 24 hours after Sadie Holly's body was found. Witnesses stated that Huff had been the last person seen with Holly. He had blood-stained trousers covered up to the knees in dirt and scratches on his arms.
Oh, well, okay.
Will Williams, a cabman, had seen Huff and Holly together, having given them a ride in his cab, which is basically like a horse and cart. Because when I saw cabman, I was like, they didn't have taxis? Then I'm like, oh, okay. It was a horse cab. The pair had been arguing, he alleged. Williams claimed that he let them off near where the murder took place. Huff was held and questioned by law enforcement. Let's take a quick break, Dylan, and we'll be back in just a moment with more Mountain Murders. And we are back, Dylan.
Oh my God, where did you go? You disappeared.
I had to take a water break.
She's thirsty.
Police picked up a second suspect, 35-year-old Todd Henderson, at a saloon on Decatur Street. A witness claimed that Henderson had been seen with Sadie Holly in a drugstore on the night of her murder near where the body was found. Emma Lou Sharp was brought into the station and asked to listen to Henderson's voice. Now, the woman made an identification, although it was not solid. Emma Lou told reporters that Henderson was the man. And for his part, Henderson was quoted as saying that if he were the Ripper, he would have begun with his wife, as she gave him lots of trouble.
Wow.
But police didn't find this very funny.
Well, that's a pretty solid defense, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. Well, if I'm going to murder anybody, I'm starting with her.
You know what? To hell with you.
Because she gives me a lot of problem on a daily basis.
Yeah, I would say the same thing about you. Like, I just wanted him to be quiet.
You would murder me while I'm snoring.
I would, actually.
Because I can't help it. I'm trying to find out ways to make me stop snoring.
And well, if I kill you, then it'll stop.
Here in this...
Oh my God, they're going to bring this episode into a courtroom one day.
Yeah.
They find your body, and they're going to, think I did it.
What if I'm bludgeoned in my bed? And you have...
It's not funny. Now you're giving people ideas.
And you don't have an alibi because you're antisocial and you don't hang out with nobody.
Oh my God, this is not funny. Just like the police didn't think it was funny, I don't think it's funny. Henderson told investigators that he hadn't owned a pocket knife or a razor in over a year. But, like Maury, they proved that was a lie. And on the morning after Sadie Holly's murder, Henderson asked a barber to sharpen his razor.
The morning after?
Yeah. So he's saying, oh, I don't have a knife. I don't have a razor. I haven't had one in a year. But they find out the day after the murder, he had stopped by to get his razor sharpened.
Like it gotten all nicked up, cutting something?
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude. What's the odds of that?
The case against both men was circumstantial, and Governor Hoke Smith offered a $250 reward for the capture of the Atlanta Ripper.
Now, that's a chunk of change back then, right?
Yeah. On August 9th of 1911, a grand jury indicted Henry Huff for Sadie Holly's murder. They also indicted another suspect, John Daniel Huff, who's no relation, by the way, in another one of the murders. But the grand jury didn't say which specific murder case. But somehow they linked this guy, John Daniel, to one of the other murders. Now, despite the arrest, the Ripper was not put to an end. The murders continued. Only 6 weeks after Sadie Holly's murder, on August 31st of 1911, another body was located, and that is 20-year-old Marianne Duncan. She was found in an area west of Atlanta called Blandtown. Lying in between railroad tracks, Mary had suffered a gash to the throat, and the killer had also taken her shoes. So again, he's progressed to taking trophies from these victims.
So even though they still have these other men in custody? But, yes. See, that could be now you're in jail and you get someone to do a murder out there to make it look like you're not the murderer.
Perhaps.
Would you do that? If I was in jail for murdering people.
For being a serial killer?
Yes, in a very specific way. And I was able to fly you a kite, right? That's
Send me a messenger pigeon?
Get word to you. That's what I see. I'm an inmate now. I have to talk like that.
Because you're out in the yard? Pumping some iron?
Yeah, I'll be pumping all kinds of stuff in the yard.
You would just be sitting in the yard. You're so lazy. You're not going to be pumping.
Aren't they going to man, I can't smoke cigarettes though.
You would be on prison TikTok.
How do the people be on prison TikTok? How does all these people have? I understand the people well connected getting a phone. But it's like this is just regular folk got phones in jail, dude. Is that a thing?
I guess.
Oh, so anyway, and then I get the information to you that I need you to go murder someone in the exact same way. So they will let me go because then I can be like, hey, look at that. I'm not the murderer because someone just got murdered even though I'm here in jail.
You're asking me?
If you would.
Is this a question?
Yeah. How do you not know that?
No, because if you're a serial killer, well, I don't want you at home. I ain't trying to fuck with you.
Oh, you don't love me.
Well, I don't know if I love you that much.
I would do it for you.
That is a damn lie. You've already told me you would never help me, cover up a body or hide a body or anything like that.
No.
You did.
No, what I said is that for that to be 100% or, secure, you got to do it by yourself. That's all I said. That doesn't mean that you can't count on me. Okay?
I can't.
But now there's 2 people in it, and now it's a conspiracy, and one or the other of us can crack. You can only count on yourself.
I got to do the dirt by myself. I can't let you do the dirt with me because you're not trustworthy.
I'm not going to crack.
All that cops got to do, they're in an interrogation room, they're shining a light in your face. You're already probably sweating a little bit because you're a little chubby guy, right? You sweat a lot, and he's got the light shining in your face and shit. And all he's got to do is offer you a cigarette, and you're going to be like, oh, okay, I'll tell you everything.
That's a damn lie.
It's totally true.
I would hold out.
He's not going to.
I would get the cigarette.
Plus, you want to poop in private, and there's no way that you're going to be able to poop in a jail cell, with a roommate or other inmates watching you.
I like that.
So a cellmate. So I'm just thinking that you're going to rat me out, and I can't do dirt with you, Dylan.
I would get the cigarette, but I would lie. I wouldn't tell him the truth. I would tell him about some bullshit, and it wouldn't be true.
I would just tell him my enemy did it.
Yeah.
I would just give them all the details about my enemy. If I was ever going to murder somebody, I'd try to set somebody else up, frame them for the crime.
Oh my God, you make somebody take the fall?
Yeah, somebody I didn't like.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like my ex-husband. Sunday, October 22nd, 1911, the body of Eva Florence is found in a field at Rockwell and Elizabeth Streets. She had been killed the previous night before. Her head was badly beaten in, and she had suffered stab wounds to the neck, but they weren't slashed. They were just stab wounds, which is a little different. Her brother, John Clowers, offered a $100 reward for information leading to the killer's arrest. And the coroner's inquest found that a firearm had been discharged on Elizabeth Street shortly before or at the time of Eva's attack. So witnesses heard gunshots, and they concluded it's probably around the time she was killed.
Well, yeah. It sounds likely.
On Friday, November 10th, 1911, Minnie Wise, a biracial woman, was found dead in an alley. She'd been bludgeoned with a rock, dragged into a field on Connolly Street, and her throat was cut. The killer then moved her 20 more feet to where she was discovered, near Georgia Avenue.
Man, same MO.
Her right index finger had been removed from the middle joint, and her shoes were gone.
What's up with the shoes, I wonder? Reckon he's putting them on and walking around in them and shit?
No. The location of Minnie's body was in close proximity to where 2 of the other victims had been found. So he's really working like this certain neighborhood.
You know, that's pretty crazy that he's still getting away with this. Being he sounds like a fairly large guy and would stand out in a crowd. And you've had these descriptions go out, multiple descriptions at the very least, basic descriptions. And I'm surprised this guy is still getting away with this, and that the whole neighborhood's not like, you know, on edge.
Neighborhood watch, being a little bit more vigilant or something.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Early Tuesday morning, November 21st of 1911, middle-aged woman Mary Putnam was murdered, and her body was found around 7 a.m. in a ditch at Stewart Street and University Avenue. The killer had tried to cover her body in loose dirt, but it was kind of like a half-assed effort to conceal her corpse. There was just sort of like clumps of dirt thrown on her body.
Okay.
Her throat was slashed, her chest mutilated with stab wounds, and her heart was found lying next to the rest of her body.
Wow. Man, you gotta
escalating.
Well, that takes a little effort to get the heart actually out of the body. I mean, my gosh, you gotta deal with the breastbone and the ribs and all that stuff. Oh my gosh.
An autopsy told that she also had a broken skull. As prints were seen in the dirt around Mary's corpse, police brought a bloodhound in, hoping that they could track her killer. The dog was able to follow the scent for about 200 yards. Mary had only moved to this area recently to work as a housekeeper for an elderly black man, and he wasn't considered a suspect. So she's like new to town. She didn't even know anybody.
Man, what bad luck.
More than 1,000 people attended Mary's funeral, mostly as spectators, of course wanting to see the body. True crime folks back in the day. The coroner's inquest into the Putnam case revealed that, as in the Eva Florence case, people heard a firearm being discharged around midnight, which is when they thought the time of death had occurred.
Well, there you go.
Following Mary's death, police felt they would not be able to solve the crimes until they got cooperation from the black community. Some investigators believe perhaps people knew who was responsible but were just afraid to talk. At churches, pastors warned women and girls about going out at night. The churches continued collecting reward money, and at this time, the pot was around $1,200.
Well, yeah, I mean, they definitely need cooperation, but it doesn't take a genius to figure out why you don't have cooperation from that community. You've been shitting on them. I mean, basically.
Yeah.
Treating them like shit.
It's true.
You don't have any inroads. You don't have any connection.
Well, what kills me is like the black community's been saying, hey, you guys need to hire black police officers that can help with this case. And then it takes like multiple murders and months later for the white police to be like, we really should start getting more cooperation from the black community. And it's like, are you listening at all? Jesus.
No, there's the problem. You're not.
Henry Huff, who had been indicted for murdering Sadie Holliday, was found not guilty. And during his trial, the sheriff suggested that jealous black women were responsible for the slayings, not men at all.
Well, that's bullshit.
Well,
I mean, come on. There's obviously, I don't know, maybe there's power involved in these murders, in my opinion. Someone strong is doing this.
Well, we have 2 witnesses as well.
Well, they're moving the body. That's not easy to move a dead body. They're, it's blunt force trauma, things of that nature, stabbing, slashing. I mean, it's obviously someone's overpowering these women. They're not running away. What a dumb statement.
Well, the investigators denied this, and they found this theory very laughable. I mean, they basically were like, the sheriff's a moron. 1911 ended, and a new year began. Now, the city of Atlanta was on edge because they were really unsure of what was going to come next. Then January 19th of 1912, Pearl Williams, who worked as a cook, was found in a vacant lot by West Fair and Chestnut. Her throat had been cut. In March of 1912, the grand jury decided that the Atlanta Ripper was a myth and each murder had been committed by a different man, which was the result of jealousy following immoral conduct.
More than a couple of things wrong with that statement.
Yeah. On Monday, April the 8th of 1912, 18-year-old Mary Cates was found in an alley. Now, this woman's throat was slit and her naked body mutilated. A newspaper noted the mutilation of Mary's body was done by a surgical instrument, and the slayer had some anatomical knowledge. The newspaper also labeled her as the 19th victim of the possible Atlanta Ripper.
Wow, that's a lot of victims.
Because they're going back and looking, I guess, at some of the other cases before the 1911 year started. So on Monday morning, April 15th of 1912, the body of an unidentified black female around 15 years old was discovered in the Chattahoochee River underneath the Southern Railway Bridge. This woman's throat had been slashed, and around her neck was a string with a key tied very tightly to it.
Well, that's strange.
Very strange. And they never figured out, like, what the key, like, if it was for an apartment. Like, they just didn't know. Another body of an unidentified 19-year-old black female was found in April. She was lying in underbrush and bushes at the end of Pryor Street, and she had been stabbed in the throat. Then on Saturday, May 11th, around 6 a.m., the body of an unidentified black female was discovered behind some shrubbery at the corner of Atlanta Avenue and Fraser Street. She had been stabbed in the throat at least twice, with one wound going through her jugular vein. Her body had been dragged after death to some bushes, and at the time she was found, they think she had been dead about 6 hours. And then on August 10th of 1912, Henry Brown, a.k.a. Lawton Brown, was arrested for killing Eva Florence in October of 1911. Brown's wife ratted him out to authorities, saying that he had come home on several Saturdays in a row, including the same Saturdays when killings took place, wearing bloody clothing. And while being questioned, Brown reportedly revealed details of other crimes. And so police were confident that this time they finally had their killer.
Oh my gosh.
Brown went to trial for Eva Florence's murder in October. A witness by the name of John Rutherford testified that the police had chained Brown's arms and legs to a chair and had struck him in the head until he confessed. Brown, while on the stand, testified that he suffered from hallucinations, and the jury acquitted him on October 18th, feeling that his confession had been coerced.
Oh, so he's not the killer?
And that they couldn't rely on anyone's testimony because he had been beaten, basically, into confessing.
Well, what about coming home? Is his wife lying?
I don't know.
I mean, coming home with bloody clothes is not cool. That's not normal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just nothing about this case makes sense.
Oh my gosh, I thought you had him.
On Tuesday, February 11th of 1913, the body of a 20-ish-year-old young black girl was found at Fair and Christian Streets. The victim had a slash to the face, her throat was cut, and her body was badly bruised around the chest and neck as if she'd been beaten. The inquest determined that the killer had stabbed her in the head until his knife broke, while holding her in a vice-like grip. And based on the direction of a number of footprints found by her body, and there were also some small markings from like maybe a rubber-tired buggy, police believe that the killer had returned to the body, turned it over, just to verify that she was dead. And she'd been wearing a blue corded suit, some brown stockings, and high-top patent leather boots. But again, unidentified victim. In March of 1913, a biracial woman named Laura Smith, who was a household worker, was found with her throat cut.
Oh my God, dude. There's so many victims.
It was a year later, in March of 1914, that firefighters found notes stuck to fireboxes in certain parts of the city which threatened to cut the throats of all Negro women. That's what the notes said. So it was basically saying that any black woman that was on the street after a certain hour of the night would end up dead. And the newspapers attributed notes to the Atlanta Ripper.
Damn.
On Saturday, it was Sunday, June 24th of 1917, two boys picking blackberries found the body of an unknown black woman near Atlanta and West Point Beltline, which was about 300 yards from Stewart Avenue. If you've been paying attention to these streets, this is like all the same area.
Yeah, and that's what's just blowing my mind. Here's a crazy idea, cops. This next generation technique of catching someone.
Patrol that area?
Put a bunch of cops in that fucking area, bro.
Yeah.
Oh my God, there you go.
Her skull had been crushed by some kind of heavy, sharp weapon or tool. That same year in October, school children discovered the body of another unidentified black female by Clark University campus. The body was in a mud puddle, the head had been crushed, and there were numerous other marks of violence about her person. She was dressed in a black skirt and estimated to be somewhere between 30 and 35 years old. In November of 1917, Laura Blackwell, a janitor who was employed by the Fulton County Superior Court, was killed by blows from an axe. Blackwell was found in her home at 233 East Fair Street. Laura's head was beaten to a pulp, her throat lacerated, and her clothing reportedly had been removed by the killer and set on fire.
Damn. It just keeps on and on and on.
It does. In March of 1918, a man named John Brown went to trial and was sentenced to life in prison for killing Laura Blackwell. Now, he was given a new trial on the case, but again convicted in Laura Blackwell's murder in 1920. 3 other black women had been found with their bodies burned or partially burned before Laura Blackwell, so these murders were not considered to be related to the Atlanta Ripper murders.
Well, it's significantly different with the fire aspect. So, that kind of makes sense, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's not exactly the same MO.
Well, and then that woman being in her home, that all seems like the Ripper gets his jollies by catching people out and about,
yeah,
or just on the
seems
street.
Like there was only really 1 or 2 women who were murdered, like at their home, or like in their backyard. That kind
It just seems like a crime of opportunity in a way for him, like who's unlucky enough to come upon me, kind of thing.
Another body of a 35-year-old black woman was found around 2 p.m. on Thursday, April 30th of 1918 in a ditch near the Southern Railway tracks by a farmer. The victim's skull had been crushed and her throat gaping open from a brutal slashing. On Sunday, March the 10th, 1918, the body of an unidentified biracial woman was found at the top of a densely wooded hill above the West Point Belt Line Railroad, which was in the vicinity of Grant Street, and it was found by some neighborhood residents. Now, the victim was reportedly stabbed in the neck with a sharp instrument. The Atlanta Constitution reported that the ground near her body was thickly coated with blood, and a small, half-open penknife was found nearby. Do you think a penknife could be the murder weapon? I'm not sure what a penknife is. I need to look that up.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
On Sunday, March 16th of 1919... Queen Esther Jackson was attacked and stabbed several times. Now, she told police that she had gone into her yard on East Harris Street for a drink of water from a hydrant when a black male stepped out from the darkness and the shadows and assaulted her. She died from her wounds on Tuesday, March 19th at Grady Hospital. So just 2 days after she was attacked. The body of an unidentified 25-year-old woman was found on the Southern Railroad tracks between Peyton Station and the Chattahoochee Station on March 4th of 1924. She had a knife wound to the temple, and there was evidence of defensive wounds showing that she had fought her killer pretty hard. On Friday night, September 5th of 1924, the badly decomposed body of a 17-year-old girl was discovered lying face down in a vacant lot on Pryor Street, near the Southern Railroad. Her throat had been slashed from ear to ear, and the Atlanta Constitution reported that 3 black women had been found with their throats slashed in the previous 2 weeks, and in each instance, the shoes and stockings of the victim and the jewelry had been removed.
Man, it makes me wonder if this is all one person or if there's some copycat, stuff going on at this point.
We're going to get into that, Dylan.
Damn.
Now, the Atlanta Constitution printed another Ripper victim reported on Monday, September 8th of 1924. The unidentified black woman had been found on Sunday night on Stewart Avenue near Dill Avenue, and the victim was estimated to be about 30 years old. She had a bullet wound to the head, her throat cut, and they said she had terrible slashes to her wrists and back. So this one has been shot, which is different.
Yes, that is a little different.
There is no clear evidence tying all of the murders to a single killer. And as you've heard, some of the murders are very similar. Others are similar but slightly different. Police believe in some cases that the Atlanta Ripper murders were used to mask other murders, such as that of Minnie Wise, who was just married to a jealous man.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about that, too, if anyone killed during this point and just kind of lumped it in with this mysterious, because they got this guy, he's killing women left and right, they can't find him, so, that's kind of from a sadistic point of view, pretty smart if you were to kill someone, even if you're another woman and want to kill a woman or a jealous husband or brother or anything like that, then you could do that, and they're not going to look for you. They're not going to try to track you down. They just attribute it to this mysterious killer that's out killing everyone.
And theories swirled that perhaps Minnie's husband had killed her and then tried to copycat the Ripper slangs. So exactly that, Dylan. And during the years of the Atlanta Ripper, other reports came in from around Georgia in places like Columbus and Augusta that were similar, victimology basically. But there were also some male victims.
Really?
Yeah. So that was different. Some problems with this case are that the coroner, Paul Donahue, was legally blind. Now get this. He had a law degree, but no medical background or any kind of degree in medicine. Most coroners make their findings visually, and this guy had to rely on verbal and written descriptions that people read to him.
Well, just wait 1 minute. This guy has no medical training, and he can't see.
Mm-mm.
He has no business being a coroner. Right?
Will you tell this white man that?
And that is not against anyone who is handy-abled. I'm just saying he shouldn't be a coroner. There's some jobs I'm not suited for some jobs.
Well, it is possible that details or certain evidence may have not been reported, and he would have no way of knowing if stuff was missing.
Now, this entire time that this has kept on and kind of turned into this big deal.
For like 13 years,
They
maybe
never,
longer.
ever brought someone else in, consulted, brought another, a pathologist in, a forensic, they didn't have, but you know what I'm saying. Even a damn anthropologist. If these people can see, they're doing better than this man. That is crazy.
Yeah. Well, this coroner, wholeheartedly believed that these killings were the work of one person, which could have led detectives down a wrong path, tying all the murders together.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's not even looking at we're talking about the style, the similar weapon, the cuts.
Well, it could have given those detectives tunnel vision for sure.
Well, yeah.
Because they clearly don't know a lot about investigating murder, so they're probably relying heavily on this coroner who can't see shit.
Damn. And he's a lawyer. He's not even a damn doctor.
Yeah.
That just doesn't seem like that's legal.
Also, as we have heard, racism played a huge role in this case. So the newspapers were mostly mute on the murders for an extended period because the victims weren't white women. And we still see this today. We see missing black women, black girls, murders of black women and black girls goes unreported.
It's true.
They do not get the attention that a missing white girl will get.
Well, that's true. And the poor, it doesn't happen. You poor kid of any color. Because, people always, and it is
it's a very racist, classist media. We get that.
Their classism, I think, is often left out of these discussions because, what one thing, when you see these victims or it's sensationalized, it's this big, huge story, it is always a white girl, but it's also another element, I think, that matters just as much or more, possibly, is the affluence of the family connections, because the kids disappearing, out of the countryside or the trailer parks or some poor part of town, they're not reported as well. So
they're always runaways.
I think often the classism, is left out of that discussion because the ones that blow up, they're always well-connected families.
Well, we have heard those stories before. We have heard that, poor working mom working 2 or 3 jobs has a missing kid and reports it, and they're just a runaway.
Right.
But the wealthy country club folks, their child goes missing.
Yeah.
And you never hear the end of it.
State police are out looking for them. But the race, I'm not downplaying the racial card either. So if you take you're poor and you're black, you ain't got a chance in hell, man, for real. You don't. And then famously, again, in a high-profile case, Atlanta did this again during the Atlanta child slayings. The very same exact thing.
Exactly.
Ignored, underserved communities. people in the community, a group of mothers had to actually organize very effectively. So, and to get the word out and to get, a light shined on this. And that's kids.
Well, and like the Atlanta child murderers, all of the murders are pinned on Wayne Williams. Now, I'm not saying that Williams is an innocent man. I think he probably did kill at least one or two victims. But do I think he killed all of those child victims? I don't think so.
I don't think so?
I don't think it was the work of just Wayne Williams. I think there were multiple people involved. I also, just listening to that podcast, is it Monster?
Monster, yeah.
Yeah, I think that there could have actually been some members of like the KKK involved in some of those murders.
Well, see, unfortunately, while you were kept on victim after victim after victim in this story, I wondered if some of these other racist organizations like the KKK and these groups of assholes may have perpetrated.
Well, we're going to get into that, Dylan.
Some of these murders.
Even after it was pretty clear that Atlanta had this killer running amok, those news reports were often buried in the back sections and usually only featured a really small blurb, like a couple of sentences. Some of the articles were written from perspectives that it wasn't a tragedy these women were murdered, but the fact that wealthy white people were losing good help to some killer.
Come on.
Yes.
What journalist could even pen that?
I know. I'm telling you. Oh my gosh, my blood was boiling when I read some of this bullshit.
I always expected like journalists to be in this class, someone who's fairly smart in a profession where you got to be cunning, smart, and I don't know if open-minded is the right word, but just, who would even print that trash?
Someone who's pandering to wealthy white people who are buying the newspapers.
Oh.
Well, as you mentioned in the beginning, you said, well, if these women were being killed in wealthy neighborhoods, well, it really did start to gain attraction when wealthy people were upset that their good cook got murdered.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's sad.
It is really fucking sad. Many members of the black community were also outraged that only black men were suspects. There were accusations that these arrests reeked of racism. White men could be responsible too, especially since there was all this animosity in the different communities at the time. But according to evidence and eyewitness accounts, the Atlanta Ripper likely was a black male. It also seems possible that there was more than one killer. With segregation in the city, it would have been difficult for a white man to move freely through these black neighborhoods without causing some chatter.
Well, and see, that rule typically holds water through this day of a killer. They're going to prey upon like a demographic, an area they're comfortable in, just like, a black person couldn't come from there and go to the white part of town and just move around freely and do what they want. And people are typically going to do these kind of crimes in somewhere they're comfortable.
Once the killing started, any unknown person, especially a Caucasian, would have been met with much suspicion once these killings had started, because everybody was kind of, pitting neighbor against neighbor. Like, this person could be the killer. And since the Ripper was able to continue to kill undetected, even after the city was on alert, people think, he had to be a black man in this neighborhood.
Well, even some of the eyewitnesses were black women. So that kind of, it wasn't like it was a white woman or a white guy saying, I've seen this black guy. It was a victim, potential victim, who said that this black guy did this to me.
The fact that most of the bodies were found by the railroad track or somewhere near where the railroad was, those areas, bring up a theory that the Ripper worked for the railroad. And as we know, most people keep to what they know, and was likely familiar with this particular area. As the trains would run in and out of Atlanta, which was mostly on weekends, one of the theories is that the Ripper wasn't even from Atlanta, which would explain, maybe later on, why the murders slowed a bit.
Oh,
we were getting like one a year or maybe one every couple of months.
Oh, because their job could change and they don't come to the area as often.
So the theory is that he only came to town with the train, and his schedule may have been consistent with the weekends, and that's why many women were killed on Saturdays.
That's a decent theory.
And we've learned most serial killers do stick to what they know, as you mentioned, Dylan, and they stay within their own race. Now, Samuel Little is an exception. Black women were kind of easier for him to approach due to segregation, but, Samuel Little, he killed a lot of white women as well. So he
Killed
was the exception.
some brown women, black women, white women. I mean, he just killed anyone he came across.
But when we're thinking of the Atlanta Ripper, also the theory is that black women were easier for him to approach. Many of these women were also biracial that were murdered, and he could have had some sort of prejudice or hatred toward them.
Okay.
Like the mommy issues. Who knows?
My God, I wish they'd found this monster.
Well, the police are not so much to blame for the unsolved murders. I mean, again, there was no forensic evidence at the time, no DNA, and they had very little to go on. And often the crime scenes were contaminated because dozens of people walked around the bodies, possibly destroying evidence without even knowing that they were. With each subsequent murder, patrols were beefed up, but since the Ripper seemingly had no particular pattern for how he chose his victims or how he would strike the victims, the police department was at a serious disadvantage. And when they did make an arrest, they were met with criticism. And again, they felt that the black community wasn't really forthcoming and helping them with information.
Well, I mean, again, that's partly your fault.
Well, we see that and we know that. But that's, I guess trying to play devil's advocate.
Right.
Of why the police didn't solve this.
I understand.
There's a lot of issues around this case. But I, like you, Dylan, am surprised this is not a big fucking story. That when we talk about American true crime, that the Atlanta Ripper is not up there. The Atlanta Butcher is not, like, one of the top stories we hear about.
Is it the same old song and dance?
I mean, it could possibly be.
Oh, my God. What the hell?
It just doesn't seem to have gotten the exposure.
Yeah, well, that's crazy.
Cases.
It was over years and years. And, I mean, it had the entire area gripped in fear.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at potentially 13 years of murder, maybe more. I mean, there could have potentially been 14 or 15 years that this guy operated in Atlanta killing women.
Possibly 20, 30 victims. I mean, that's crazy.
Because we're only seeing what they tied to him. But there could have been murders way before that just went unsolved or fell through the cracks.
That's insane.
Because they weren't deemed like a priority.
Well, maybe this podcast right here will finally put it to rest.
Yeah, you
Catch
think so?
the Atlanta Ripper.
Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this story. I know there were a lot of victims and it was quite lengthy, but it's just such a crazy case. I mean, I just don't understand why it's not more known in the true crime community.
Yeah, I don't either. And I just wonder when, as humans, we're going to reach that point where we just are fair and kind to each other across the board.
I just don't think we're capable of it. I think at heart we're just assholes, Dylan.
Well, I think there's some of these elements of it is inherent in human nature. But I mean, you don't have to be that way.
You don't have to be.
I mean, it's not even kissing someone's ass or any of that. It's just the basic goodness, well, basic kindness.
Can't we all just get along?
Can we not?
I mean, what the hell?
Brother King said it best. And this is after a bunch of dudes beat the shit out of him. Bad. That beating's brutal. I mean, if you can watch that Rodney King video and be like, that's okay, maybe he should just cooperate. It's like when they sick the dog on you and the dog's actively biting you over and over and they're just like, stay still. What the fuck, bro? I can't stay still.
Yeah, if you
This
have a
dog's
German
biting.
shepherd gnawing on your ball
Who's
sack,
taught
who's gonna fucking just stay still?
Who can?
Nobody.
Oh, my God. Anyway.
Well, we're not here to solve all the social issues of the world, even though we would like to.
I would like to, but we can't.
But I thought this was a great case. I felt like more people needed to know about it. And, Dylan, all we can do is look at history and hope that in the future we can all, change change how things were in the past and maybe make the future a little bit better.
It's twoo.
So we have to educate ourselves. We need to be in the know about stuff like this. So moving forward, we can all work to make the world a better place.
There you go.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you want Mountain Murders, join us on Patreon, patreon.com/Mountain Murders Podcast. You can get ad-free episodes and lots of bonus content.
Yeah, we hope you like that over there. And if you have just a thought, you want to say we love you or tell us something about that's going on in your life.
A listener story.
Family traditions. We asked about those.
We got a couple, actually. Some folks emailed us about some of the things they did. One of our patrons over in Tennessee, Jennifer, her family makes the apple stack cake we talked about.
Oh my God. I want to try that now.
Well, Dylan, I was thinking of compiling an episode of some Appalachian specific foods and maybe sharing some different recipes.
Okay.
So maybe that'll be something we do in the future. Now, we will be releasing an offbeat on Wednesday, so stick around for that. But I just wanted to mention that next week on Wednesday, which will be the 23rd.
The Christmas week, basically.
We won't have an offbeat on the 23rd, but we will be back Christmas weekend, the 27th, with another Mountain Murders true crime story.
Oh my God, you didn't let me complete my thought.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So yeah, if you have anything or want to hit us up and just say whatevs, hit us up at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from you guys.
Bye.